You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? I make myself laugh every time I do that. Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod, the game where no one wins. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
And I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where, using a number generator and the Rate Your Music punk charts, we choose one album and one EP at random to discuss. You can follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Punk Lotto Pod. And we have a website, it's punklotopod.simplecast.fm. And feel free to shoot us an email. It's punklotopod@gmail.com. Please continue to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. And now that all the plugs are out of the way, this week we are joined by a returning guest. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Dechichio from Tor Johnson Records.
Very cool.
Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it's awesome. When we finished that last episode with you, I was like, we need to hurry up and get Paul back because that was really fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, so weirdly, we did a bunch of catching up before we started recording. I don't know why I didn't save that for the actual episode, but I think we have a lot to talk about today. Yeah. So I want to go ahead and just dive into the charts this week, unless anyone has any objections.
No. Yeah.
Cool. So, for this episode, we got the year 2012, and as usual, we like to take a look at the Rate Your Music charts as rated by users in the United States. So, right off the bat, pretty obvious. It's a thing we've pointed out a million times on this show. Number one, Converge, All We Love, We Leave Behind. Anytime Converge puts out an album, they're in the top 10 on Rate Your Music.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's crazy is looking through this list, if you were like, how is 2012 for music? Without, ever showing me a list, I'd be like, I don't know, it was fine, I guess. But, man, 2012 was a huge year.
Yeah.
Just this first page, I'm just like, banger, banger, banger. It's insane.
There's some weird stuff on this first page, though. I'm shocked at how high some of this stuff is.
I don't remember that Cattle Decapitation record coming out, which is kind of funny. I like that band, but...
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't have probably noticed if that one came out, but...
Yeah, I don't typically follow
it is
Cattle Decaps stuff.
Odd to me that they're in the top 5, but...
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Especially considering what else is further down this list that I do remember very distinctly from coming out that year. And
this year does a better job of actually representing 2012 than some of the other years we've had. Though there are some odd, that's definitely a retroactive ranking. The most notable one is that Pile record.
Yeah, that is not one of their big records, at all.
And I feel like that's only on here because the new album came out, and that one's getting a ton of recognition and positive reviews. So everybody's going back and checking out the old stuff. So.
I mean, them as a band, I'd say, the last 2 records, they've been pushing those really hard. But, yeah, when this record came out, and Pile being from, the Boston area, I saw their name a lot, but this record had no hype.
Yeah, but if you look at some of the stuff on here, it was a big deal at the moment. So, that number 2 is Cloud Nothing's Attack on Memory. I remember it coming out, but I don't remember it being a big deal then.
Same.
I don't remember if that record. I want to say that probably maybe that was the one. No, I do remember them having a really hype moment, and just looking at their other albums, I can't tell.
Yeah, I feel like that was
the album title. Maybe that is the one, but
probably the one. Looking at them, yeah.
Maybe. I mean, it's the cover that looks the most familiar to me. But I feel like people got into them maybe a year or two later after this record. But number 3, that one's definitely of the moment. It's the Messengers on The Impossible Past.
Totally.
That was a huge record. Still pretty highly regarded, right? In the scheme of Messengers records.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah. It looks like it's the highest rated and most rated album on Rate Your Music. So,
yeah, I remember people who weren't especially into punk, or at least not that variety, being really into that record. So, either within the year or two of it coming out. So,
I feel like that was one of their first records with a really big push behind it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember there being like a little bit of a backlash on that album. I remember people saying they didn't like it as much as their earlier stuff. But, seeing is usually the people who latch onto a band early on tend to fall off around the Blow Up record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of everyone else is like, no, this is the best one.
Yeah.
Going down a little bit, number 6, Loma Prieda's 4 or IV. I'm not sure.
It's a Roman numeral.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, don't most of their records have, numbers in them? No, I guess that's the only one, but it was the 4th album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that was a big deal when it came out.
That was one that I do remember listening to a lot when it came out.
Yeah.
I had been into them on everything before. I had been listening to them for a few years by that point, so I was really pumped for that one.
I will surprisingly be seeing them later this month.
Yeah, that's right. They're still, they never broke up, right?
No,
they just all do so much different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember liking that record when it came out. Number 7 is an odd one. It's the Chariots, One Wing. The Chariot are always crazy highly rated on these charts. And I didn't realize people liked them as much as they do.
Well, I would have expected the Chariot to be a band that was popular, but maybe not paid attention to critically. Just from the scene that they're in, that they were from, the era that they came from of metalcore. It is really unusual that one and Long Live are their 2 highest rated albums on Rate Your Music.
Yeah, because that's when people stopped paying attention to them.
Yeah.
Right. But they toured incessantly though.
Yeah.
So they could be just they're a band that you saw when you were just getting into stuff because they toured forever,
Yeah, there's a good chance. Number 10 is an album that I wished I'd gotten into in 2012. It's White Lung and their album Sorry. Is this a retroactive ranking?
I mean, Paradise came out in 2016, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, this is still the highest rated record, but it's not the most popular. So yeah, this one may be.
I think they...
I feel like I didn't hear about them until maybe a year or two later. But I listened to a little bit of it before getting ready for this episode, and I was like, hey, this is good. Why didn't I listen to this back then?
Oh, interesting. So I just saw, all right, so number 12. All right, Killing Joke. That's pretty much like a comeback record.
Yeah.
Right? Same year, you also have the Circle Takes the Square comeback record at 19. And you have the Propagandhi comeback record, Failed States, at 22. Was 2012 that crazy of a year and I just didn't realize it?
Well, you also have a Mission of Burma record.
Oh, right.
In 2012. I don't think that one's the comeback, but it is one of the newer ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe the second comeback album.
Right.
Yeah.
Napalm Death too, but I mean, yeah, it's kind of crazy seeing so many older bands. 2012 was apparently the year where they were just all let's put out records now.
Well, apparently there was a Pill record as well.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
It was also the year that Forgetters released their full length, so that was our Blake Schwarzenbach comeback tour, and I guess in a way sparked the potential for a Jawbreaker reunion.
Yeah,
because I feel like people weren't really talking about Blake for a while after Just to Brazil. Like, so Forgetters, I guess, reminded
Bonds of
everybody.
Life kind of fizzled. I mean, it just never, it never took off, really. And then, so it was kind of like, well, I don't know. Maybe he's done. But then Forgetters came out. And
that, do you remember how big of a deal that Circle Takes the Square record was?
Yeah, yes, I do.
It was like, oh my god, they're back. And they did a Kickstarter for it.
Yep.
And it took forever to actually come out, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they started the Kickstarter like a year or two prior, because it also paid for like the recording or most of it.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they hadn't written anything either.
Right.
Yeah, I want to say they had like one song written, which granted it was probably like a 20-minute song or something.
Yeah.
And then they had the Kickstarter, and I want to say that they were, well, I guess everything on this record is under 10 minutes. So.
Oh, not only?
Did you listen to that one? I mean, I assume you did, but
Me?
yeah.
Oh, definitely. I actually really like Circle Takes the Square. I know that is an unpopular opinion on this podcast, but
Is it?
I'm pretty sure you guys have talked about them before, and but I like it. It's a good record. I don't think it needed all the hoopla that was attached to it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a fine record, and if they had just put it out, I would be like, yeah, it was really good. But then there was like, how about everybody pay for it ahead of time, and then also still buy the record? And I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
interesting.
I have personal opinions about Kickstarters in general, attached to punk.
Well, so Circle Takes the Square. When I got into Screamo in like 2008, 2007, 2008, I loved them. Like,
Sure.
I was super into them, and then it just kind of faded. And they just became a band I didn't listen to that much, mostly because they had very little to listen to.
That is fair.
At that point. I do remember enjoying Decompositions, and I would probably be more interested in revisiting it than As the Roots Undo now.
I feel like Decompositions is just good standalone songs.
Yeah.
And As the Roots Undo, you kind of need to listen to as a record.
Yeah.
And like if I'm listening to something on shuffle and a song off on the As the Roots Undo comes on, I'm psyched because that's great. I like that song, but it sounds weird because it like starts almost halfway through a song.
Yeah.
You know?
I love those bands that like have an entire track that's just like noise or feedback or something like that, and then it shows up in a shuffle, and you're just like, this isn't even a song.
In terms of like the Screamo era stuff, did you guys ever listen to Welcome the Plague Year?
Yes. I've listened to a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Their record is the same way. There's 30-second long tracks that is just a clip from something and like feedback. And you're like listening on shuffle and it's just like, what the fuck am I listening to right now?
It's like something you don't even know what it is. You don't even know which band it is.
Nothing.
Right below that is Code Orange Kids, Love is Love, Return to Dust, which Code Orange Kids have a weird career.
Yes, they do.
They were like automatically hyped with those first couple EPs. Mm-hmm. Then the first album came out and everyone was like, it's good, and they didn't really talk about it. And then they didn't start talking about them again until I Am King came out?
Yeah. Well, that's because they changed they weren't kids anymore.
That's right. They grew up.
Yeah, they were adults. They were Code Orange adults. So it was fine.
And now they're like a fucking playing WWE theme songs at pay-per-views now. They got weirdly huge. And good for them, I guess. Let's see, anything else on this first page we want to talk about?
I guess the stuff that I remember being fairly hyped, Birds in Row.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed that record. I did not realize that Toys That Kill record came out in 2012.
Yeah, that's probably.
I always assumed that was earlier.
Well, hey, Paul, what's your opinion on Toys That Kill?
They're fun. They're a fun band. They're fine.
we're in the camp of not liking them.
Okay, all right.
Primarily due to Todd Collinger's bands always wind up being the band directly in front of the big name at Fest, so we always have to suffer through one of his bands. I've seen Todd Collinger like 4 times through like 3 different bands, all because his band played right before the band I really wanted to see.
Yeah.
So I don't really like them that much, mainly for that reason.
Best Practices open for them on probably this tour in Boston. It was fine. They're fun. Like, I don't really have any sort of positive or negative feelings towards them.
Yeah, they always struck me as a band that isn't really bad, but isn't anything that I would imagine would have such a big fan base, and they really do.
But then, how much of that is like from FYP?
Yeah,
you know, that people are like, "Oh yeah, it's the new FYP band. Sure, let's go do it." I don't know.
And how much of that is also like Underground Railroad to Candyland?
Yeah,
was a big deal, especially amongst like folkier punk kids.
Yeah, I don't know if they're like big because of who they are as people or as a band.
I've noticed that Rate Your Music tends to give folk punk bands a much higher score on here. I always associate Underground Railroad, and they're not really a folk punk band, but they seem to have the same fan base. But looking right a couple spaces above that is that Harley Poe record, and Dylan, I don't know, the lead singer of Harley Poe was in Calibretto 13.
Oh, weird.
Who was a Christian acoustic punk band?
Kind of a proto folk punk band.
Yeah, like definitely. But they were, when their albums came out, they sounded more like Green Day's Warning.
Yeah.
So I guess it's weird. I don't know anyone who listens to Harley Poe, and it's just strange to see them on here. But then when you go to the next page, we see another folk punk band that has unfortunately also been canceled with Ghost Mice, but it's still on the second page.
Yeah.
And like we noticed this with all those Pat the Bunny records, they're always in like the first like 2 or 3 pages. So it's, I guess, a lot of folk punks use Rate Your Music.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
This second page too, like now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, like all of the You Blew It full length, Titus Andronicus, like the Sidekicks, like that Basement record was huge.
I wanted to point something out. It seemed the second page has a lot of records that I would have expected to be on the first page. All the ones you mentioned, Joyce Manor, Off. Yeah. It's really interesting how the ones that seemed like they were more popular then are rated lower. Whereas, like, I thought it was odd that Glockamora record was in the top 20 because I really liked that record, but I don't remember it being quite that well received when it came out. And that Everyone Everywhere record, kind of the same thing. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't think that many people did. Versus maybe, You Blew It or Dowsing, which I think they're even further down on page 3.
Yeah, Hot Water Music on page 3.
Joy de Vie.
Modern Baseball's over there on page 3. Dad's American Rat Ass is over there on page 3.
Oh, Dad's.
That Sundials record, When I Couldn't Breathe, is on there. That's one of my favorites.
Canby Broad Shoulders.
Yeah. There's That Saddest Landscape record, Rules.
Yeah.
After the Lights.
We Were Skeletons. That record's great.
Is it the last record?
Tragedy, too. Tragedy's real low. 138. Wow.
We are 138.
Run Forever full length. Man. Yeah, so much stuff.
It kind of just keeps going, too. Like, every page has something. Like that Burning Love record.
Yeah. I was scrolling through this before we got online, and I got up into like the 400s, 500s before I really stopped seeing stuff that I distinctly remember coming out and being promoted and people talking about. So 2012 was a really big year, and it was a really big year for heavy stuff.
Yeah. Which kind of segues perfectly into this. Before we started recording, I messaged the two of you and said I found my favorite albums of 2012 list from the
yeah.
from the end of that year.
Oh yeah.
And I said, hard disagree. So I made 2 lists. I made a list of top 20 EPs and 25 albums.
Okay.
And looking at it, it's weird stuff. I would not consider half of these my favorites from this year anymore. Do you want me to just like, I don't know how you want to do this. Let's see. Do you want to hear the EPs or do you want to just only do albums?
Well, just tell me. I want to know what are the really dubious
Okay.
records. Like, which ones are you like?
Okay.
Confused you even liked them that much.
So my number 20 EP is Junior Healy, Two Trees Rain.
Oh wow. Okay.
Does anyone remember Junior Healy?
No.
They
I
were
remember
like
that name.
They were like a Gainesville screamo band. I even wrote about each of these EPs and albums. And I think the main thing is it says I'm reminded of Me Without You.
Okay.
And vocally similar to Loma Prieta or Calculator. Okay. There's some stuff like this Muncie Girls EP, Single Mothers, like I get that. I threw on this Low Sky EP, How to Kiss. I love Low Sky, but
yeah, they're a good band.
They're not a band that I like ever throw their records on anymore. So it's funny that I still I thought that highly of it. That may have been some home state pride there, though.
Well, I think there was more of an expectation for that band.
True.
When that came out, and they just kind of didn't really follow through.
The next couple ones. I have that Placeholder, Thought I Would Have Been Somebody by Now EP on here.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I remember they were a big deal. Didn't they have to change their name?
They were called something else before, and I can't remember what it was, and then they changed their name to Placeholder.
Oh,
and it's really funny, because now there is another band called Placeholder.
Yeah. They were called Coastal.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that first demo was really, really good. I remember not liking anything else nearly as much.
I've got this Elizabeth, Where Vultures Land EP. I think it was a Birds and Row side project.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
They were like another crusty, like hardcore band. And then this is weird. My number 5 is a band called Sleepwalkers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Worcester, Mass.
Yep.
And number 4 is a band called Burdens, who I think were another Northeast band. It's just weird that like I have those in my top. My number 1 is the Muscle and Bone self-titled. So for EPs. And then looking at the albums, it's more weird stuff. So number 25 is Convul. I'll Be Seeing You.
Oh, that's right. That came out in 2012.
That record rules. I still like that record. I don't listen to it very often, though.
I listened to it last week while I was doing my C's. I'm trying to listen to every record I have.
I've got a Secret Arms album on here.
Okay.
They're like a Florida screamo band that I think one of the members actually died like a couple years ago, and like maybe a car accident or something along those lines. So that's interesting that I even have that on here. Damien Dorado's Maricopa, like it's not even a punk record, but that's like the worst of those 70s throwback Damien Dorado records.
Yeah, it's the first. Well, it's not the first record that he did with Richard Swift, but it is the first one where they got real freaky.
Yeah.
I like that one mostly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I've got a Perfect Future record on here.
Oh, yeah.
Old Wounds, Warmth in the Winter of 1914, 1915. That World War I concept album. I've got Me Without You's 10 Stories on here.
Wow, I would not have that on my list.
No, me either.
Okay.
I've got this Songs for Snakes Charcoal Heather album.
You loved that band.
Yeah, I don't know why I love them so much.
They weren't bad, but yeah, it was not important.
I've got the Ambulers. Remember the Ambulers?
Oh, no.
No one remembers the Ambulers. They're number 12 on my They were like an indie punk band from Philly. Like they had a kind of a lo-fi vibe, but they definitely were in that scene like right before Waxahachie kind of blew up. So I've got that POS album. POS, We Don't Even Live Here. I would not have that on there either.
Yeah, that's not a good one. That's the.
It has some okay songs, but it's as an album isn't great.
Yeah.
My number 5 though, my top 5, I still stand by. Converge,
Yep.
Forgetters, that Jimmy Cliff record, Fake Boys Pig Factory, and number 1 was Old Fling Spite. So,
Which is a great record.
I still consider that my favorite record of that year. It's just a weird. It's funny.
It's funny how much of your list skewed towards even like obscure even then.
Yeah.
But I guess this was the last. 2012 was probably the last year that I remember was a good year for finding music on blog spots.
Yeah, I distinctly remember that.
Because it fell off really hard because all of the media fire, like all of the hosting sites were just like worthless. Everything would get taken down immediately, or the websites were gone. So that whole DIY music sharing, music journalism, sort of like unofficial.
Yeah.
It completely pretty much ended in 2012, at least in that form.
Yeah. Bandcamp kind of became like the de facto go-to for like punk stuff because everybody put everything up for free usually.
Yeah, you didn't really need those blog spots anymore now that there's just Bandcamp for streaming.
Mm-hmm. And Bandcamp does that thing where they, you listen to it 3 times and they're like, hey, you should buy it. And if you're listening to it 3 times, I guess you probably should buy it. So
That's true.
So what was Tor Johnson doing in 2012?
That is a good question.
Because I know last time you were on, you forgot to mention what was going on with the label on that year's episode.
Right. Sort of just for shits and giggles, I guess. I just kept going through the Rate Your Music chart just now, oh yeah, what actually even came out? So 2012 was the 10th year anniversary of the label.
Yeah.
So I didn't release that much stuff in 2012 because I ended up doing a pretty huge 10-year anniversary show, and then I did a 7-inch.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ended up being like the only things that I actually released in 2012. The show ended up taking up so much. I flew, like, the drummer from St. Jude lived in Spain, so I paid to fly him in. The guitarist from Another Dead Juliet lived in Cincinnati, so we paid to fly him in. The bassist for Hulk Out lived in Minneapolis, so I flew him in. So, I mean, the show was great. It was a sold-out show that then we recorded and released the next year as a DVD.
Nice.
So it was really fun, but that 7-inch ended up taking up so much time from me because I was trying to get unreleased stuff from the bands.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, on paper, that should be really easy. Here's the unreleased song, here you go. But it wasn't that easy. And it was, like, chasing down people and, like, trying to get stuff. And it was supposed to be an LP, but then bands got stuff to me so late, it ended up being a 7-inch with a download code that came with, like, 10 extra songs than what was on the 7-inch because everyone got stuff to me so late.
Yeah.
So it was like a small year in terms of releasing music, but it was a big year, obviously, for the label. And then it was also the same year that Best Practices released the EP LP on Tiny Engines.
Yes, and I was going to talk about that when we got to our EP.
Yes.
Later on.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So, was there anything else big that came out that year? Or?
Well, I got married that year.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's a big year.
Yeah.
Well, I think...
I got my first full-time job that year, too. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, we've done 30 minutes on 2012.
Well, yeah. We should probably move on.
Yeah. So, all right. For our album this week, we got number 528, which is way low. And It is Ghostlimb and their album Confluence. Ghostlimb are from Buena Park, California. This was released on Vitriol Records and Melotov Records. I believe it was a split release. The personnel is Justin Smith on guitar and vocals, Neil Sharma on bass, and Alex McLeod on drums. Justin, of course, is from Graf Orlock and Dangers, and Neil is from Forming and Highwater, as well as a bunch of solo alt-country albums. And Alex was in Dangers as well. The album was recorded by Jack Shirley from Canidae, who records and masters half of the hardcore albums since 2010.
He did so many records that he just like mixed and mastered, or even just mastered.
Yeah,
for years.
Literally everything on Vitriol Records is mastered by Jack Shirley, pretty much.
I remember
he's the West Coast Will Dandy, you know, Will Killingsworth from Dead Air. Like, you know.
And Southeast, we've got Chris Hibbert. He's our version of it down here.
Yeah.
Well, what did everybody think of this record?
I'll let you guys go first.
I love this record. I love this band. 2012 was probably either 2011 or 2012 was the year that I would have gotten into Ghostlimb. Probably would have first heard them. These two albums that have the same style, you know, art, just a different color. The red and
three that do that.
The red and green albums.
Mm-hmm.
What's the third one?
It's the one that just came out this year.
Just came out. It's like gray. It's like grayscale.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't looked closely enough at the.
It's the one with a.
It looks like newspaper almost.
Yeah. The only measure is labor done, not days. It's got a Virtute song on it.
Yeah. But the two, Infrastructure and this album Confluence, those are my favorite things they've done. And I wanted to say at first that this was maybe my second favorite, but then I was listening to it for this episode, and the first half of this record has so many killer riffs.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just one after another. So I don't know. I might have to go revisit Infrastructure and see.
Yeah, I really, really, really like this record. I don't remember. I remember, Dylan, you were into them before I was, and I remember being more into Dangers at the time. And it's so funny. It's hard to really talk about any of Justin Smith's bands without mentioning the other ones,
right?
Because they all kind of exist within like the same, area of like hardcore and punk, but they all provide different things. So like Graf Orlock is your grindy, movie clips, like playing the Jurassic Park theme song, and then Dangers is like your punky hardcore, where more of the emphasis is on the vocals and not so much like the guitar parts. But then Ghostlimb is like, I guess, the more metallic side of things, and it's definitely the heaviest, which is odd considering Graf is more of a grind band, but there's more weight to these songs, I feel like, and these riffs are crazy good.
Yeah. Ghostlimb is probably the most unrelenting of those bands.
Mm-hmm.
And
they are not dynamic, though.
Conversely, though, I feel like that last song is.
True, yes.
Like, that last song is like kind of from out of nowhere. For me, like I slept on Ghostlimb. I am a big fan of Graf Orlock, like always have been. I feel like they toured more, so maybe I saw them more. Like they played with bands on the label whenever they'd come to town. I actually played with Graf Orlock when they did that, like those 3 East Coast dates when they played Providence. But like Ghostlimb, I guess I just sort of slept on it, and this is exactly the type of hardcore I like.
Yeah.
Like, I like it kind of crusty. I like it like no one's probably singing along, or like if they're like I like stereotypical hardcore, but like there's just been a point in my life where I'm like, no, this is better. I want like this type of of more crusty, more like unrelenting, just like crushing hardcore, and like I feel like they do it great.
I feel like Ghostlimb is almost, it's like advanced hardcore, if that makes sense. Like it's not easy to just kind of like have in the background, because if you do that, you're really just going to hear the drums and Justin's vocals. It's something you do kind of have to pay a little bit more attention to really get like, oh, that he's doing some really interesting stuff with his guitar there. And I always think of like looking at those 3 bands and being like, well, most people graduate from Graf into Dangers and then Dangers into Ghostlimb. That's definitely the route I took. I slept on Ghostlimb too. I probably didn't really get into them until the album after this one. What was that one called?
Difficult Loves.
Yeah,
and there were a couple years in between, because Difficult Loves came out in, I want to say 2015. Yeah.
I feel like he does that though, because like he has all 3 bands, and he just cycles through one to the next or whatever, and like he just takes his time with all of them. Like how long was it between the last Graf Orlock record and the one that just came out this year, or even Ghostlimb, because Ghostlimb also put out a record this year. Like he's just like, I think it's time to make a record, so I'm gonna just do that.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting though. They all do tend to come out really close together.
Yes.
Yeah.
You kind of get something from Graf, Dangers, and Ghostlimb all within maybe the span of the year.
That is true.
They must have just some cycle of creativity, and when it's all done, they just put it out, and they don't space them out or anything. Because none of those bands are really like super actively touring. Like they tour usually when they release something, but even then, I feel like the last thing that Graf did, they barely toured for it.
Yeah, and then the record they just put out this year, they did those like 3 East Coast dates. They did a couple West Coast dates, and I guess they're doing like a European tour like next month. And they're playing Fest.
Yeah.
Which seeing as how both of you are going to Fest, make sure you go see them because it was mind-blowing. I mean, I saw them in a basement that probably should have only held 50 people with like 100 people there.
Graf?
It was, insane.
Yeah, we both saw them in Greensboro, right?
Oh, I wasn't at the Greensboro show.
Oh, that's right.
I saw them at Lunchbox Records quite a few years ago now. I'm wondering if that was around the same time that they played those East Coast shows. Do you remember what year that?
Oh no, this like just happened. Like in like February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They played in Charlotte at Lunchbox Records a couple years ago, and I distinctly remember this guy we used to call Hot Topic Andy. He had those gigantic gauges, so like they looked like huge discs, and he had like barely any ear holding it in place. But he would always take his giant gauges out whenever he was getting ready to mosh. And we're inside of a record store, and this is the old Lunchbox location, which is even smaller than the one they're in now. Which is basically they pushed all the shelves to the back, and there's maybe like a 10-foot space between the shelf and the and the stage. And I remember the dude started doing his like dancing, his hardcore dancing, and like hit Justin Smith. And like between songs, Justin just screamed at him to like, stop fucking touching me. He was so mad that they kept hitting him.
That's awesome.
I remember Justin's kind of prickly person. Because I remember after seeing Graf Orlock in Greensboro, we were standing around. Grant was talking to him about like label stuff, and somebody who was just kind of like not in the conversation, but was like hovering nearby, like interjected and said something weird, and he just like very like curtly just like. He said something like, yeah, it's because they suck, or something, just something like that just killed the conversation to like, no, I'm not talking to you.
Oh, man.
Wanted to mention Neil in this band. Anytime I ever think about Neil Sharma, I always think about his amazing side projects that he's done. So Forming was this, I don't know, Forming is fucking incredible. They released 2 EPs. They're like an indie emo sort of band. They're barely emo, but like they're very melodic and they're so fucking good. And then he went and started a band called High Water, which was like a Lucero style alt country record. Oh. And then after that, he just started doing albums as Neil Sharma and the Sagebrush. And he's done like 3 albums, and they're all straight up alt country records. Like, and they're all fucking good. He's an amazing songwriter.
Those Forming EPs really remind me of like Adult Magic and Crowbait.
Yeah, the Mikey Dumps Iron Cheek side projects.
It's got that little bit of twanginess.
Yeah, which makes sense if he went into alt country like he did too. So those are criminally underrated. I know we're supposed to be reviewing this Ghostlimb record, but it's just turned into a...
I was just talking about them.
The Vitriol family tree.
Yeah, well, while I was listening to it, all I could think of was bands like, your Backstabbers Inc. or like early Trap Them, like Achilles, stuff like that. It's just like that heavy, like hard-hitting hardcore that like there's no mosh parts. It's just like... all emotion. And then I must have looked so weird because I was walking through Providence today listening to it with my headphones on, and like of course there's parts in this record where you just like need to sort of pump your fist but then not really because you're like in public.
Yeah.
You just like do a little finger blast beats.
Those little leads happen, and like you pretend like you're playing a guitar, sort of like that one hand just like does like note things where they don't make sense. Like
it's short too. It's 22 minutes long, so you get through it really quickly, and it covers like a lot of different. Like it's crusty, but it's thrashy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of D-beat in there. But then there's like some more melodic riffs, even like some almost Shai Hulud-ish, like really, I don't know, like airy riffs almost. Like it covers a lot of ground. Like
they do that cover of Hot Water Music on this album, Southeast First.
Oh, that's right. That's the song that like when you're listening to the record, all of a sudden it comes on and you're just like, this is like you broke out some melody. Oh,
yeah.
I totally didn't realize that was a Hot Water Music cover, but I also wrote down there's a crazy good bass intro, and I was like, oh, that's because it's Hot Water Music's bass intro.
Right.
Which I kind of like this version more than the Hot Water Music version.
Which album is that off of?
I could have told you if you didn't ask me.
What is it? It's off of No Division.
Right.
Nice. Yeah. One of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't notice that. I didn't know that was what it was. Because it doesn't really sound like it. I mean, it is and it does. I don't know.
Well, they did on Infrastructure, the album before this one, it ends on a cover of Plastic Surgery by Leatherface. Which they haven't, I don't think they've done any more covers on any of their records, but
the closest you get is the new one has that Vertute song, which is a post Weaker Than.
Yeah. I really love when bands do that, though, when they take a song that, you like, but you play it in the style of your band.
Yeah.
Like anyone can do a cover that sounds like the original.
So what do you think about ironic metalcore covers of pop songs then?
I'm not going to go out and buy the compilations that definitely exist, but
you don't want to buy that Affinity record for their Such Great Heights cover. Like it shows that they have like interest outside, outside of the style of music they play.
Right.
Because it's like any hardcore band could cover another hardcore band song, almost for like a cheap pop, just to get people to go like, all right, now we're gonna play a Black Flag song.
Yeah.
A song that literally everyone knows.
How many times have I seen hardcore bands be like, do a Start Today cover, and of course everyone goes crazy. Why wouldn't you? And then that's it.
Yeah, or like a pop punk band doing a Saves the Day cover.
Right.
It's easy. I mean, everybody wants a fun sing along, and it helps everybody feel a little more involved in the show whenever it is a song that you know the words to. But it's cool. It's more fun when you go outside of genre.
Yeah.
Well, unless anyone has anything else to say, do we want to start rating it?
Yeah.
I'll go first. I give the album a 4.0. I really like it. I think the music is incredible, beginning to end. The only thing that I would like that keeps it from being a little higher rated for me is Justin's vocals are very samey. So he's just screaming at you at full volume the entire time. But there's not a lot of melody there. Like I'd say there's zero melody there until you get to like the very end of the album. And I for me to like make a 5-star album, I need a little something I can sing along to at least. But yeah.
I'm a 5-star man.
Yeah.
I love this band. I love this record. I actually do really love the way he really monotonously just screams full volume. Having seen them live makes it even better. It's really impressive how fast they are, how fast they play, and they're really tight. And he plays all those guitar parts live, and he just yells at full volume through, a full 20-minute set, and his voice is intact. Like I've talked to him after they played, and he's not completely shredded his vocals somehow. But I really, if I had a quibble, it would be that you can't really understand his lyrics because of the way he screams. But this is one of those bands that really makes pulling out the lyric sheet and reading along to the record worthwhile. Because then you just see like the mouthful that all of these songs are. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's writing like essays on every one of these tracks.
On capitalism.
Yeah.
I am also going to 4.5 it. Like I said, this is like 100% the type of hardcore that I love. But I guess because I got into them later, they're like not something I would think to throw on initially. Like I'm obviously going to listen to this record again, but if I was like, I'm in the mood for something of this type of music, it probably wouldn't be the first record I'd grab, you know? So I don't know, like it's excellent. It's done well. It's like I said, it is exactly the type of hardcore I like. I guess if I could nitpick, yeah, a little bit more dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sucker for an interlude, you know, and like this record is just balls to the wall the whole time.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they're trying to do. But I think that's probably what's keeping me from being 5-star on it.
Yeah, and I think that's also by design. Because like I said,
Sure.
Each of his bands do completely different things, all within hardcore.
Yes. Yeah.
So I definitely think this was meant. You'll never get like a melodic sing-along in a Ghostlimb album.
Right. He saves those for Dangers.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
No fun sound clips.
See, that's the thing too, is I feel like this is like his serious band.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of funny because like I feel like Graf is definitely the biggest of his three bands.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I mean, Dangers did stuff with Death Wish.
Yeah.
I feel like Graf is the one that people think of first.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, because they've been around the longest. And
yeah, they do such insane shit.
And Dangers is so sporadic.
Yeah.
With their releases.
But yeah, if you look at all three of them, I feel like this is the one where he's like, nah, this is serious time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting real right now. Like, there's no time for jokes. There's no time for sing-alongs.
I got some shit to say.
Right?
Yeah. You will have to purchase the album and read the lyrics to know what that is. But.
Right.
All right. Well, let's get into our EP then. We got number 186 on the EP charts, and it is State Lines and their self-titled EP, State Lines. From Long Island, New York, released on Tiny Engines Records. The personnel on this record is Jonathan Dimitri on guitar and vocals, who now goes by the name Jade Lilytree. I'm not sure why the name change. Also, Tom Waring on guitar and vocals, Johnny Wims on bass, and Teddy Sarr on drums. Jonathan, or Jade now, plays in the band Oso Oso with Johnny Wims. So I think Jade, like his nickname used to be JD, so I'm guessing he's like Jade is like a stretching out of, I don't know. It's strange. It's an interesting, like a stage name. The record was recorded by Bradley Cordero of Sainthood Reps, and the art and layout was by Maxwell Stern of Signals Midwest.
Remember Sainthood Reps?
Yeah. The Christian emo band.
But not really?
But kind of?
They were on Tooth and Nail first, which was weird.
Yeah.
And then they left.
Yeah, after one record. And they went to like Run for Cover.
Yeah.
Which then Me Without You went and joined Run for Cover. So what's everybody's thoughts on this record?
So when we drew this one, I was thinking that it was the band State Faults.
Wrong state, same Tiny Engines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same time frame, same year, because State Faults put out that record in 2012, where they have the one song that shamelessly rips off Me Without You.
Yeah, Desolate Faults, right? It's like
I think so.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Why would Tiny Engines sign a State Lines and a State Faults and release albums by them in the same year?
Good question.
It's only going to be, market confusion. One of you's got to change names.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. It's fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with this record.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really picky when it comes to my emo indie rock that's in the I almost said brand new. They're canceled.
Yeah.
In the Orange Island, genre, the wheelhouse.
Here's a safe reference. Saves the Day are a big influence. So.
Okay, but even then, like when I say Saves the Day, I mean Can't Slow Down and Through Being Cool.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. That is not what is happening on the CP.
No.
I hear it a little bit in the guitars, maybe.
Yeah.
Like the type of guitars that they're playing. And maybe in the drums, but the singing style is nowhere near the same thing.
There was a couple just little things that, I guess irked me about this EP.
Yeah.
And, the first of which would be the backing / extra vocals.
Mm-hmm.
That just almost sound like the same guy with reverb. But they're not, because it's a totally different voice. And sometimes it's doubled up, but then sometimes it's not doubled up. And I don't know, it's just I understand if you look at the timeline of this band, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Hoffman Manor LP, which came out in 2011, wasn't an LP. It might as well have been a demo that was well recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't even know if it was on a label. I'm pretty sure they self-released it.
It was self-released, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I remember seeing it, and it was basic CD that literally anyone could buy somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So then this EP comes out, and this is the first real release. And then For the Boats comes out. Okay? Mm-hmm. And this EP, I feel musically, it's okay. It's pretty good. It's catchy. They're very proficient in their instruments. Vocals, I don't know. It sounds like a teenage kid. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because they were young. I remember when this record came out, they were young.
Yeah.
And then a year later, For the Boats come out, and so I listened to that, sampled it to get an idea. And the first song off that record is a completely different band. It's way darker, and I liked it a lot more. And I don't know, I don't remember from the time frame of Tiny Engines whether if I were them, hypothetically this band had come to me. If they came to me with For the Boats, I'd be yeah, man, I'll do that. If they came to me with the EP, I'd be what else you got?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or if I saw them live and they played stuff off both, I'd be all right, let's do a thing. I don't know. It just, I feel this EP, I could easily forget about it as soon as it was done listening to it. But that's just me. What about you guys?
Dylan, you want to go?
Sure. I remember this EP cover, the album artwork. I remember seeing their name and seeing this album artwork a lot in 2012 and probably in 2013. I remember their follow-up, they were just never a band that I got into, and I don't even remember ever listening to them. So when I listened to this EP, it was not what I expected. Because my impression of them was probably more like their later stuff and Oso Oso, and I was expecting something a little more like that style of emo-ish pop punk. This is way more mid-2000s, like Taking Back Sunday emo than I would have expected from this time period and this scene.
You know what's funny is listening to it, all I could think of was Drive Through Records.
Yeah.
Was
it
like,
is in that vein.
Right? Yeah. And like, I just remember when all those bands were coming out, like me being like into, like, I don't want to say real punk, but like, you know, all those bands coming out and me just being like, oh God, it's like, I'm good.
It's pronounced true punks.
Oh, excuse me. Right.
Right. Yeah. I had to look at the bands that were on Drive Through, but it's right? The slightly more credible mainstream pop punk of the early mid 2000s.
Here's my take on this. I actually liked it.
All right.
So I have the opposite take, I guess, as you, Paul. So I started with this band on Hoffman Manor when it was brand new. It was definitely one of those albums that I got on a blog spot or like a WordPress, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, this is real good," because I was still in my Tiger's Jaw phase then, and that's what that first record really reminded me of was Tiger's Jaw, and I loved it. I thought it was great. And then I distinctly remember telling our friend Corey, not the same Corey who's been on the show multiple times, as like, check out this State Lines band, and he really liked them too. And so we both like continued to like listen to their stuff as they went forward, and we were both like, hey, the EP's it's pretty good. I like the album better. And then when they put out For the Boats, we were both like, I don't like this that much. His voice got weird, and the songs are a lot slower. So, like, I got into them early and then kind of fell off. And weirdly, he won me back with Oso Oso. So, yeah, I like this EP. I will say it does suffer a little bit from being kind of forgettable. Mm-hmm. I'd say the third track is probably the best song on here.
I got real excited when I saw it was called Caved In.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a cave-in cover that they just called Cave-In.
I was hoping it would be the same style. Nope.
It's a medley of cave-in songs. Yeah, I do think of it as like if Saves the Day was a Midwestern emo band. instead of like a Jersey pop punk band.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me, listening to it reminded me a little bit of maybe like Grown Ups, but a little more laid back, or maybe a little more structured.
I thought of My Heart to Joy and Day Trader.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Definitely Day Trader.
Yeah, Day Trader a lot. And even to a lesser extent, Into It Over It. Like, they're faster than Into It Over It are.
I will say on a positive note, listening to it, their drummer was doing some stuff that, like, he didn't need to be doing any of that. He could have just been playing a beat, and like he definitely, like, I don't know if he's just talented enough that he was like, I don't want to say getting bored with the songs, but being like, I can put in all sorts of fun things, and like, just fills that sounded really good, and like interesting like tom hits in the middle of beats that like you didn't really have to do. But like it definitely added to the song. He
was their second drummer. Like he's not on the first album. Right. They don't even credit a drummer on the first album, weirdly. So I'm guessing it was one of them, maybe, or just a friend filled in for the record. But yeah, he's on this one. But then I think this guy even leaves before the end, and so like he doesn't follow over to Oso Oso, because the only reason why State Lines broke up is because Tom Waring wanted to quit touring.
Right.
And I think they toured a lot, too. That may be why Tiny Engines was into it. I mean, it was the type of music they were playing, plus they toured a lot. Did you have any interaction with them, being as your records came out, like, a couple weeks apart from each other?
You know, I really didn't. The Tiny Engines, like, we'll call it the Tiny Engines family, was kind of weird, where, like, if we had connections from playing with each other, then that was great, but there was no really fostering like actively between the bands. So I don't know if they ever hit Rhode Island, so they never hit us up for a show. I do remember, so Tiny Engines, I don't know if they still do this. I don't know how much they still do in terms of it was really important for them for us to get like press photos. Okay, like it was important that there's the real press release, there's like all the like real legit stuff. So like they didn't want any live shots, they wanted like actual like press photos. Okay.
Yeah.
So for us, because we're old punks and like I don't know, that's weird to us. Everyone came over my house for the Super Bowl. We all dressed in like whatever sporting goods like team wear we had, and this was pictures of us yelling at a TV and eating nachos. I'm pretty sure like one of us has a badminton. I don't know. You can find the picture on Tiny Engine's site.
I'm looking for it now. Yeah. Someone's holding up a racket.
Yeah, right. So in comparison, I remember that like State Lines was like they were real serious pictures. I don't remember if they were like looking over their shoulders or like I'm trying to find it now, but I remember their pictures were like, yeah, there it is. It's like one of them's got an acoustic guitar and like holding the American flag, and like they're walking down a street in New Jersey, looking real serious. Only one of them looks at the camera, and I just remember at the time, because we were just like, this is like someone else is paying for our record, and this is great, like whatever. Looking at those pictures that were coming out in press releases at the same time as ours and being like, man, these kids look lame. Like
they are children. Look at them.
Yeah. Yes.
Super young.
These pictures were taken when the EP was coming out, they were legitimately like just graduated high school, maybe.
Because Jade doesn't even look like that anymore, like at all. Like the pictures of Oso Oso, it's just like, wow, they are really young here.
Also, now I'm going back and revisiting like our pictures, and they're ridiculous. Sorry. Anyway, good times. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that. If you had any interaction with them, I mean, but I don't know why I think would have, other than just being on the same label and in the Northeast, technically.
I mean, a bunch of the bands on the label, we ended up playing like all sorts of shows together. Like we played with Cattle Drums a couple times, obviously Dikembe multiple times, like Monument, Little Big League, Run Forever, like Save Ends, Springtime. It just like State Lines kind of like all of those bands, we were all running within the same like general DIY circle.
Yeah.
And like I feel like State Lines was trying really hard to do bigger than that, I guess.
Yeah. Or well, if you follow the Oso Oso trajectory since then, that makes sense too, because they're like AV Club talked about now, doing
right.
Recorded sessions on YouTube and all that. So there definitely was an effort. And Tiny Engines is a strange label.
It's the Jersey band going for it.
Yeah,
yeah. Right. Exactly.
Because, so, I don't know. Tiny Engines are supposedly based out of North Carolina.
They are. Charlotte area.
Yeah. I have literally never met them or seen them or ever know anyone who's, like, in the area who's talked to them. Like, I have no idea who they are. And I know 2 people who run record labels based out of this area. So...
yeah, there's very little interaction with anything in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, they both, like, even in 2012 were, like, older than us, like, in their 40s, or that general area time frame. One of them's, a stay-at-home dad, and the other one, like, works at the label all the time. And, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, because I feel like they used to do more stuff. Like at the time that we were on the label. In 2012, we played I Got Brains Fest in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And like, so one of the guys ended up driving out and like hanging out with us. Because like, they had never seen us, like at all. So the record had already come out. And so he like came out and saw us. And it's actually one of my favorite like things because we got him super drunk in the van. And he's like a stay-at-home dad and like doesn't ever do that, and we were just like, yeah, car bar, let's hang out, whatever. And then the other guy we didn't meet until we ended up playing Fest, and like both of them at Fest were like, this is serious, we're label guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all right, we're
probably because half their bands were playing.
Well, yeah. Right.
Or all their bands, really.
Yeah, I mean, that year, tons were playing. I mean, even I Got Brains, Cattle Drums, Dikembe all played. Like, I think 3 or 4 bands on the label all ended up playing. But yeah, they're interesting guys. They're both, like, kind of introverts. And I don't know. They treated us well, and they're both really great.
I mean, they put out a shit ton of awesome records, that's for sure.
Yes, they do.
Like... my mind always thinks of them as the label that was kind of trendy, but I don't. They have some like bigger hit records like that Tiger's Jaw, Spirit Desire EP, Dikembe, but then they would take like chances on stuff like that Springtime 7-inch.
Oh yeah.
Or like the Jowls 10-inch. Like,
oh yeah.
And even now, looking at the stuff they put out, it's like a lot of shoegaze type stuff, like that Nanami Ozone and See-Through Dresses.
That Wall Eater band is awesome. They're from the UK. That record is amazing.
Strange Ranger is really good, like sort of indie emo.
Yeah, and then you have stuff like Little
Alien
Big
Boy,
which is Japanese breakfast before she went on her own.
Which band was that one?
Little Big League.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was her band. Okay.
Yeah. That was her band before doing Japanese Dresses. Is that what it is? Right? Japanese
breakfast.
Breakfast. Japanese breakfast.
They're See-Through Dresses.
Right. See? Too many bands.
See-Through Breakfast.
And yeah, they even did like that beach slang, Cheap Thrills on a Dead End Street. So it's like they've been in the right place for some big stuff, and then like I guess uses that money to turn around and put out other great records that maybe wouldn't be the most commercially successful, but are still great records. So it's a good label. I love the majority of what they put out. I think that Summer Cannibals album is gonna blow up too. So I've seen a lot of people talking about it. Yeah, I guess about this EP is unless there's anything else to say. I mean, it's hard to talk about. There's 4 songs and they're all very similar sounding.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we can go ahead and rate it, I guess. I'll go first. I'll give it a 3.75. I like it. I enjoy a lot of the songs as I'm listening to them, and then they kind of fade once the album's over. So it doesn't quite stick with me as much as I'd like it to, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I would give it maybe 3.25. I don't mind it while it's on. I don't love it, but it's fine. There are some interesting parts. The drumming, like you said, is really interesting. More interesting than it necessarily needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not anything that sticks with me, and it's not anything that I would revisit by choice in
Yeah, I'm right in the
2019.
Yeah. I'm gonna say a 3 for like all the same reasons. Like, I didn't want to turn it off. It wasn't bad. But, like, when it was done, I couldn't really tell you how it was. And like, there are definitely things that irked me about the recording of it. And I don't know. It was fine. I hate to be so like blasé about it. It's somebody poured a lot of heart and soul into this record, and I'm just like, meh.
Yeah, he's just laying into your label mates there, and
I know.
they really, I was just talking to them last week, and they said how much they loved that Best Practices album. So like,
yeah, tell them to call up Tiny Engines and buy a couple, because it's really good.
All right. Well, unless we've got anything else to say, I'll go ahead and say what we're talking about next week, because Dylan, you don't know yet.
Oh, I don't.
Surprise.
I have a vague idea, but...
Yeah, so next week we are talking the year 2009, and we are doing number 383 on the album charts, and it is Victor, Fix the Sun, Person, Place, Thing. I don't know. Should we shout the Victor part because it's got an exclamation point in the middle of the name? Victor, Fix the Sun. And the EP is number 49, and it is NoFX, Cokie the Clown. God have mercy on our souls. Paul, tell us.
Join us for the final episode of Lotto Pod.
Are we going to get to witness the Hensley brothers never talking to each other again? No,
well, we're going to have a mediator for that episode. So someone who's going to he's going to defend this EP. So
awesome.
Paul, tell us where we can buy your stuff at.
TorJohnsonRecords.com. It's got a nice big web store full of all sorts of fun stuff from labels all over the world, including my own, which is not. It's just from here. And you can listen to anything you want at TorJohnsonRecords.bandcamp.com. You can download shit for free if you want, because if you wanted it for free, you'd just find it somewhere else anyway. And
Yep, I ordered one of those Plan 9 t-shirts, so I can't wait to get.
Oh yeah, I'll be printing that tomorrow for you. You got yourself a nice special one.
Yeah,
I got to print it on a completely separate day.
Nice, a one of one.
One of one. And for your silk screening needs, hit up Teeth Like Swords Printing.
Definitely.
I don't know, plug all the things, I guess, right?
Yeah. You gotta hustle. So. Very cool. Well, like I said at the top, continue to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're at PunkLottoPod. And yeah, give us a review. We could use a couple more. We've been kind of stale on the reviews. Like, our listenership has gone up a little bit, but we need some fresh comments so it could pop back up in the iTunes charts when you search for Punk. Yeah, cool. Well, Paul, thanks a lot. It was fun having you on.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely have you back in the future. And cool.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Time for go to bed.